Hi, I'm Courtney Anderson with the City and County of Denver, and I work in the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, and my focus is on net zero energy for new buildings. Thank you for listening to the public briefings for the 2022 Denver Building and Fire Code and the Denver Green Code adoption process. We will be reviewing proposals for the Code Committee hearings for IECC and Denver Green Code. And this is also in collaboration with Community Planning and Development. These public briefings are to keep public updated on Code Committee progress. They're intended to be less technical explanations for upcoming code proposals and previews for what's scheduled to be heard in the upcoming hearings and recaps of what happened in the past hearings. All comments and questions should be brought to committee hearings. So you please go to the 2022 Denver Building and Fire Code and Denver Green Code adoption process website, where we have a list of proposed amendments, schedules, agendas, and ways to sign up to attend a hearing. To hear the full discussion and really ask any questions, please attend these Code Committee hearings. There will be 9 public briefings to coincide with the IECC and Denver Green Code Energy Chapter hearings, and these will happen 8 days before the hearings. So on this calendar for February, you can see it happens 8 days before the IECC and a day before the Denver Green Code hearings. And here's the schedule below of these intended public briefing dates. When we talk about the code committees, we're talking about the code committees for the Denver Building and Fire Code and the Denver Green Code. The Denver Building and Fire Code have building codes like the International Building Code, the International Fire Code, the International Energy Conservation Code. And the Denver Green Code is a code that allows the community to test provisions. It's updated every 3 years, and the provisions are reevaluated to see what can be moved to mandatory code. We add more progressive provisions every code cycle to reflect the community's vision for Denver. This code cycle will introduce a limited use mandatory for the Denver Green Code. This will be a limited use for the Denver Green Code on all commercial, including multifamily residential projects. And the goal is to elevate all new building project performance in Denver. Project teams will choose a very small number of provisions from each chapter for each project. And readership will provide a preview of priorities expected to be mandatory soon. The development community can prepare to succeed, and it will accelerate familiarity with the code sections in the Denver Green Code. There will still be the optional full use of the Denver Green Code, which encourages exemplary leadership and shows what's attainable today. This is the Denver Code adoption process. So last summer we started with working groups where we met with community members, subject matter experts, and stakeholders to hear what ideas and concepts they wanted for the City and County of Denver. We then developed those ideas and concepts into city proposed amendments. We also requested public proposals, so anyone from the public was able to submit a proposal to be heard in the committee meetings. Through the end of January to the middle of May, there will be technical advisory committee meetings that will be ongoing to hear and make recommendations to approve or disapprove proposals. Those will be published and be sent to City Council for recommendations of proposals, and there'll be a briefing and a vote. And if that's approved by City Council, then that will create the 2022 Denver Building and Fire Code. For the Code Committee structure, the committee hearings will be with Community Planning and Development. There will be 6 committee hearing series. First one being the International Building Code and International Existing Building Code, the International Fire Code, the International Residential Code, the International Mechanical, Plumbing, and Fuel Gas Code. And what these briefings will be focused on is the International Energy Conservation Code and the Denver Green Code Energy Chapters. That will be one series. And then the Denver Green Code non-energy chapters will be another series. There'll be 15 to 30 voting members of each committee series. Noresco is Denver's code consultant, and they will be facilitating these meetings. They are open to public to listen or to be a proponent or opponent. They will also be following Robert's Rules of Order, where a proponent speaks. Then there'll be speakers in support of the proposal and then speakers in opposition. Then the committee has a chance to ask questions, where there will be a rebuttal in support and then a rebuttal in opposition. And if necessary, there'll be floor modifications and then eventually getting called to a vote. And the committees will be voting to recommend approvals of proposals. And the agendas for the committee hearings will be posted 5 days ahead of the hearing, and the minutes will be posted 5 days after the hearing. There will be 2 committee hearing series with the Office of Community Planning Development and the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency in collaboration. The first one, which I've mentioned before, is the combination of the International Energy Conservation Code, or the IECC, and the Denver Green Code Energy chapters. There'll be 9 hearings for this series, and you can see the dates below. The other series will be the Denver Green Code non-energy chapters, and there will be 6 of these hearings with these dates listed below.
My name is Christy Collins. I'm with Community Planning and Development, and I'll be talking a little bit, just briefly, about the goals of the work that we're doing related to amendments to the IECC and to the Denver Green Code. It's important to say that these 5 goals that I'll be highlighting are not a comprehensive list of all of the goals related to this work, but they are just some highlights that we wanted to bring forward today. So, first goal, Comprehensive Plan 2040. We aim to support the community in achieving this shared vision that has been brought forward through Comp Plan 2040. We want to support development teams in aligning new project outcomes to contribute directly and actively to this shared community vision, and to elevate the understanding that each property plays a significant role in shaping the holistic context that forms Denver as a city. No individual property exists in isolation. Second goal, energy related. Decreasing Denver's contribution to climate change, fundamentally essential. The planet is changing, and every community is responsible for slowing this down and softening this and mitigating this to every extent possible. This includes decreasing the negative impact of new development projects through operational energy use and the decrease of that operational energy use. Courtney will be talking a lot more about that, so I won't get much into that, except to say that it's not enough to just focus on operational energy, even though that's a hugely important factor. Embodied carbon ties directly to this, but even beyond carbon, there are considerations beyond resource-specific requirements that can significantly affect a project's impact, positive or negative, on residents in its neighborhood, in the community, in the city, in the region, and in the broader context. So, third thing, maintaining viability, making the Denver community nimble in the face of change. We aim to address immediate challenges to the longevity of Denver as a community and to the viability of our community here in this region, in this place, at this moment in time, with localized factors and potential for Denver's bigger positive impact considered. We'd like to empower the community to adapt and continue to address these considerations as they emerge in what's now a very rapidly changing world, and to support each other and keep the community strong through this. We'd like to start addressing biodiversity alongside of climate change, because biodiversity is a big global conversation and a big consideration. It's on par as a concern for us as a global community. Addressing biodiversity requires a holistic approach. We have to think about what lives where and what relies on what across Denver for survival. The ecosystem that we're part of, that supports us in being here as a community, is the ecosystem that we need to consider. And then we also need to consider what Denver does to support the surrounding ecoregions, and then also what role Denver can play in supporting those surrounding ecoregions. Water is also worthy of mention. It's a direct, immediate, short-term concern for Denver, obviously, probably on everybody's radars. also for the Intermountain West, the West as a whole, and frankly for the entire U.S. food supply. So addressing water considerations is of high importance. Changing our relationship to this resource, though, is going to require full community engagement and a change in perceptions, responsibility, and a commitment to living in balance with a resource that right now we're not in balance with. And then air quality, also a direct health concern for Denver residents today that we'd like to address. There are others beyond this list, but those are kind of some highlights. Fourth item on the list, maximum impact. Our goal is to make as much of an impact through these changes and updates to the codes as we can, not to only think about decreasing harm, but to help teams move towards considering Denver as a living, evolving city, one integrated, ever-changing whole system within which each property sits and plays a role in shaping the character of. So we'd like to tap into the unique potential that each property carries to positively impact that integrated whole. The goal is to help project teams start looking at projects as part of that context and not as isolated pieces, because no project, no property exists in isolation. Our Denver neighborhoods and community don't exist in isolation either. They're part of a greater regional system where the different parts and pieces act symbiotically. And then the fifth point to mention is that we're focused on changing process and thinking, not only changing stringency of specific requirements that relate to single resources or single areas of performance on projects. We're just scratching the surface on this evolution in 2022, but we expect this conversation will grow. The goal is to bring residents, to elevate resident perceptions and awareness so that residents become actively engaged and aware of the resources and ecosystem that support our continued existence in Denver, so that we can get to a point where we're actually living in balance with those resources, keep ourselves nimble for change, and evolve the preferences that have led to the imbalances that exist just from the core. So not just mitigate the damage done, but get to a point where we're choosing differently and we're choosing balance for longevity as a community. The contribution of a project doesn't stop with that project as a single thing and a single deliverable. The contribution of the project is really much greater when we consider what it can inspire in terms of the coevolution for all of the years that it remains in place, the coevolution of residents and the ecosystem through engaging the residents and visitors to become positive contributors to the health of the changing community system. So in service to these goals, the expectation is that with adoption of 2022 updates to the Denver Green Code and to the other I codes, very limited mandatory use of the Denver Green Code will be introduced for all commercial projects.
We'll be reviewing the goals of our work for net zero energy by 2030. Homes and buildings account for 64% of Denver's greenhouse gas emissions, 15% in residential, and 49% in commercial, multifamily, industrial. And by 2050, about 40% of our building stock will be new construction. So we need to decrease Denver's contribution to climate change by increasing the efficiency of our code now. This is fundamentally essential because the planet is changing, and every community is responsible for slowing this to every extent possible. Denver's path to net zero energy by 2030 started with the framework in the Net Zero Energy New Buildings and Home Implementation Plan. And this is a path to achieving net zero energy as a whole community, where there's different solutions based on different building types. So there's different targets for commercial, for multifamily, for residential. And as we move forward, we'll be taking into consideration that Excel is committed to the grid being 80% renewable by 2030. And as we're talking about net zero energy, it's helpful to review the definition of net zero energy for Denver. So it's a new building or home that's highly energy efficient and fully powered from on-site or off-site renewable energy. And there's really 4 pillars to this, and this is how the proposals will be organized as you hear them in the committees. The first one is being highly energy efficient. So having target energy use intensities, or EUIs, for commercial buildings, or target energy rating index, ERIs, for homes. The second is having an all-electric building. The third is being powered by renewable energy and electricity, so combinations of on-site and off-site renewables. And the last pillar is being providers of demand flexibility for the grid, so things like battery storage and grid integration.
Hi, I'm Katrina Manigan, Director of Buildings and Homes for Denver's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency. The Energize Denver Ordinance regulates existing commercial and multifamily buildings' operational energy performance, not single-family homes. A little history about the ordinance. In January of 2021, the city formed the Energize Denver Task Force and charged this diverse group with designing a building performance policy for Denver that improves health and equity, creates jobs, and brings existing buildings to net zero energy by 2040. The group reached full consensus on their recommendations to the city, and the task force included representatives of offices, apartments, condos, warehouses, hotels, Xcel Energy, energy producers, affordable housing, tenant and nonprofit experts, labor unions, and environment and clean energy experts. The Energize Denver performance requirements cover buildings over 25,000 square feet and would require all large buildings to improve energy performance on average 30% by 2030. They do this by setting a long-term performance target measured through energy use intensity, or EUI, for each building type. Every individual building will have its own trajectory to achieve the target for its building type, with binding 2024 and 2027 interim targets. Solar will be fully credited towards energy use. And I'll note that 15% of existing buildings and the vast majority of new buildings should easily be already performing better than the final targets that will be set. And these high performers shouldn't need to do anything under the performance requirements. Small buildings, 5 to 25,000 square feet, will have to complete a lighting upgrade or install or buy solar to meet 20% of the building's energy usage starting in 2025. The second part of the Energize Denver Ordinance are the renewable heating and cooling requirements. These require that all commercial and multifamily buildings partially electrify space and water heat upon replacement of those systems when cost effective. And the requirements phase in as follows. On January 1st of 2023, the building code will be updated so that permitting is equal for a heat pump and a gas system. Today, permitting a heat pump is harder than a gas system. On January 1st of 2025, the building code will be updated so that heat pumps are required upon system replacement for easy to electrify space and water heating systems, such as furnaces, rooftop units, and individual water heaters. And on January 1st of 2027, the building code will be updated so that heat pumps are required upon system replacement for harder to electrify space and water heating systems, such as boilers. Shifting to renewable heating and cooling is not only important for the climate, but also to improve equity and safety. We know that gas equipment fails carbon monoxide tests in 40% of low-income apartments and condos in Denver today, and 95% of these do not have carbon monoxide detectors. In summary, the Energize Denver Ordinance will result in an 80% reduction in existing building emissions by 2040. Keep in mind, as we're reviewing code proposals, that new buildings, of course, become existing buildings and will have to comply with the Energize Denver energy performance requirements and renewable heating and cooling requirements in the future. So here on this graph, you can see the timeline showing how code adoption overlaps and lines up with the Energize Denver requirements. So starting on the left, what you see in red is the years when new buildings will still be receiving a certificate of occupancy under the 2019 Denver Building Code. So while they may only be permitted under that code through the end of 2022, they will continue to be built and get that CO and become occupied through 2024. Then in orange, you can see the new buildings, the timeline when new buildings will receive a certificate of occupancy under the 2022 Denver Building Code that we're developing now. And that, of course, runs through 2027. Here you can see how in green, how the Energize Denver requirements fit in this timeline. So starting in 2024, new buildings that have had a certificate of occupancy for a full calendar year will start being required to meet EUI targets for that building type under the Energize Denver existing building performance requirements. And starting in 2025, existing buildings that replace their water heating or space heating systems will be required to partially electrify those systems upon replacement when it's cost effective. So you can see here that existing buildings will be required to start electrifying some systems when they're replaced during the same period of time when new buildings will be being built under this 2022 code that is under development.
Hi again, I'm Courtney Anderson with the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency, and I'll be reviewing the proposals for the upcoming IECC and Denver Green Code energy hearings and the Denver Green Code non-energy hearings. These are the proposals scheduled to be heard at the next IECC and Denver Green Code energy hearings, but given the discussion time, some of these may roll into the next hearings. These are my notes and summaries of the proposals taken from the reason statements and the overall body of the proposals. For public proposals, I've done my best not to change the intent of the proposals. To read these in detail, please visit the 2022 Denver Building and Fire Code and Denver Green Code Adoption Process website, where we have a list of proposed amendments. And to hear the full discussion and ask any questions, please attend the Code Committee hearings. I'm going to share my screen. So I'll be going through the proposals one by one and just giving a high-level summary of them. So the first proposal is Proposal 104 about residential inspections. So this proposal clarifies the relationship between third-party inspection agencies and the code official, which enables the City of Denver to better use inspection and enforcement resources that are available. The proposal also incorporates current policies to offer a $150 permit fee reduction for the use of HERS-rater third-party inspection agencies. So you can read this in detail on our website. The next proposal is proposal number 11, and this really just provides a definition for all electric. So you can see here, this definition is stating all electric building, a building that has no fuel, gas, or propane plumbing installed in or out of the building, and that uses electricity as the sole source of energy for its space heating and cooling, water heating, including pools and spas, cooking appliances, and clothes dryer appliances. All electric buildings may include solar thermal water and pool heating. So that is the definition that is in this proposal for all electric. The next proposal is proposal number 17 about crawl space walls. And again, these are all focused on residential today. So as we're going through these, it's IECC based, but residentially focused. So this proposal offers direction for installation of foundation insulation, which makes enforcement easier and more straightforward. The current language does not address insulating from the outside and speaks a little bit to insulating the rim joists or the depth of the floor. So for interior insulation, the foundation wall next to the sill plate connection for interior application of insulation, and for the exterior insulation, which is the bottom connection with the footing or footings or soils, are rarely insulated. So moving requirements for the installation of insulation based on where it is installed increases the performance and efficiency in Denver through consistent applications. This will benefit the city of Denver in that as we move to net zero energy homes and the need for continuous thermal envelopes that avoid thermal bridging. So this will reduce heating and cooling loads, which will mean fewer PV panels needed on the rooftops as well. So the next proposal that is up is proposal 19. Let's go up. So the purpose of this code proposal is to remove language that is not really needed in the city and county of Denver. So it removes references to tropical climate zone compliances. And also for the net zero energy implementation plan, that sets an ERI score of 50 without on-site renewables and an ERI score of 40 with on-site renewables. So this proposal removed language for ERI alternative sections because with the ERI targets, there's not a need for additional energy efficiency options. And all these details are here. Like you can see, the tropical climate region was removed here, as well as the ERI alternate section. Next proposal is proposal 102 about certificate display. So this proposal codifies a section of a current city policy document regarding displaying a certificate where the space conditioning equipment is located. So it ensures clarity and enforceability. And you can see in this proposal here, it lists the requirements that the certificate would need to display, such as R values, U factors, duct and building, envelope air leakage testing, heating, cooling, and service water heating equipment specs, PV information, ERI scores, and which code version the building was permitted on. The next proposal we'll go through is proposal 23. So this is about the general prescriptive path. So in order to create parity and calibration between the prescriptive and the performance compliance paths, and to ensure movement towards the 2030 goals, changes were made in the R and U value tables in this proposal. So the U values were changed for windows, and those are based off of the total building performance reference home table in R405.4, the section about vertical fenestration and other than opaque doors. And also, this proposal for the section makes the compliance with the IECC more difficult when the window to floor ratio is above 15%. So changes in the R and U value table equalize compliance with the compliance paths to begin the journey to climate action goal of net zero energy homes by 2030. It also updates the SHGC, and it's been lowered because of the impact on the manual J head load calculations, which have been driving up equipment sizing in order to have capacity meet the load. And finally, it addresses slab edge insulation and under slab insulation R values. So there's a lot to Proposal 23, but you can view this in more detail on our website. The next proposal is proposal number 45. So this proposal is about testing for air leakage. So it's put forward to ensure that there is consistency of language between the City and County of Denver's 2018 IACC amendments and the newly added language in the 2021 IACC. The City and County of Denver currently has exceptions for the air leakage requirements of 3 ACH for townhomes and ADUs. So this proposal addresses those building types in exception number 2 by using the CFM per square foot of shell metric, which was added in Denver's amendments during the 2018 IACC. And you can see exception 1 has been modified to ensure that heated garages are not considered to be inside the building thermal envelope. So there's a lot of strikes and a few additions to this proposal. The next proposal is 11.2 about continuously burning pilot lights. So the purpose of this is to be more specific regarding the appliances that are not allowed to have standing pilot lights. Water heating equipment has also been added to the list of mechanicals. And water heaters have been added because of the inefficiency associated with a standing pilot light, and because water heaters backdraft and create combustion safety issues in a home. And so this becomes both an efficiency and health and safety issue in the IACC. The next proposal is let's see, what's up? Proposal number 7. So this is about duct and air handler locations. So the purpose of this proposal is to take an incremental step to bring all ductwork into the building envelope by requiring that the air handler be installed within the envelope and any ductwork located in a ventilated attic be installed in such a way that it can be insulated properly to perform. And there has been substantial research conducted that documents that ductwork located in unconditioned attics lose about 25 to 50% of the heating or cooling energy put out by the HVAC system. So bringing ductwork into the envelope is a tested strategy to reduce this loss. This proposal also, as you can kind of see here, it highlights that there's a Denver Green Code aspect to it as well. So if we scroll down here, we can see there's a Denver Green Code proposal. So the Denver Green Code version of this proposal requires ducts to be inside the conditioned space or to be installed so that they perform as if they were in the conditioned space. And just a reminder, everything we're talking about today is about residentially focused proposals. So the next proposal is proposal 46 about duct testing. So the 2021 IACC changed the format of the duct testing requirements. The Denver 2018 IACC adoption allowed leakage as high as 6 CFM, while the 2021 allows leakage as high as 8 CFM in specific circumstances. So this proposal narrows compliance to 4 CFM, and for the Denver Green Code version of the proposal, it narrows it to further to 3 CFM of leakage. So this ensures clarity, integrates Denver's 2019 amendments, and better defines what constitutes the duct system that must be tested. In addition, the proposal better matches the city's 2030 goals by creating better, more efficient duct systems. The next proposal is proposal number 13.1 about existing buildings in Chapter 5. So this proposal, let's see, has many modifications. For R 501.4 compliance, it deletes reference to codes the City and County of Denver does not adopt to clean up the code and not reference a section that's not available or used in the city. For R 501.7 for inspections, the proposal requires bigger projects as defined as 300 square feet or those that exceed 20% of the existing building square footage to have inspections performed by approved third parties. This next portion is about our 502 additions. So it's a change in space conditioning exception number 4 that allows the use of the Energy Rating Index, or ERI, to demonstrate compliance with an addition that changes space conditioning in the same way that the total building performance is being used in exception 3. And for building envelope, it simply removes the blower door test as a means of compliance for additions if a proper third-party inspection occurs to look at requirements of the air barrier, air sealing, and installation table. And lastly, for our 503 alterations regarding lighting, the lighting exception has been removed from this section of the code as LED and other high efficiency lights have become more common and more frequent. The next proposal is proposal number 31. The purpose of this proposal is to establish the ERI performance compliance path for the City of Denver and the metric used to determine the trajectory achievement towards the 2030 goal. So this proposal creates a maximum performance ERI score both with on-site power production and without off-site power production. It also expands the requirements of Table 406.2. You can see some of these here to ensure parity between the prescriptive path and the performance compliance path. It does this by requiring all aspects that are associated with installation required by the prescriptive path. It also recognizes that setting ERI compliance scores without and with on-site renewable power production is a means to ensure a sound thermal envelope that is equal to or better than the IECC prescriptive path, yet offers designers and builders greater flexibility to specify energy features and building techniques to determine the most cost-effective way to achieve compliance. And the last proposal that is slated for the next residential IECC and Denver Green Code Energy hearing is Proposal 49 about Solar Ready. So the purpose of this proposal is to move the Solar Ready Appendix, RB, to the main body of the code as a requirement. So one objective of the City and County of Denver's 2021 IECC adoption is to ensure that all new construction under the new code is ready for electrification. The possible addition of on-site power production largely services that goal and the greater 2030 goal of the city to get to net zero energy homes. This proposal outlines what is needed to be considered ready to install solar renewables after the certificate of occupancy has been issued. So you can see all these different requirements. And that is the last proposal that is scheduled for the residential IUCC and Denver Green Code Energy hearing. So this would be hearing number 2. So thank you very much. So next we're going to go over the Denver Green Code non-energy proposals scheduled for the first committee hearing. The first proposal is number 17 about the ecological impact statement. So this proposal drives development projects to consider impacts on site, neighborhood, city, and regional ecological systems and existing infrastructure and community occupants. It requires an ecological impacts assessment, so documenting the existing site conditions and impacts that the project will have on site, as well as community engagement inventory and integrated project approach narrative. There are no stringency requirements, but it encourages thoughtful design that is supportive of Denver's climate, sustainability, resiliency, and equity goals. And Denver has defined progressive goals in order to preserve the city's ecology and identity as a place with a high quality of life. This framework is a starting place for driving new ways of approaching projects holistically down the road and sets the stage for adding stringency requirements later. Future code cycles will require greater creativity and innovation in each of the 7 topics. And you can see the 7 topics here, starting with topography, hydrology, climate, vegetation and animal habitat, soils, human use, and human health effects. These can also be found in Lead for New Construction version 4, and it includes a credit which outlines these 7 topics. The next proposal is proposal number 26 about only walkable turf grass. So this proposal will limit areas where new turf grass can be installed for new construction projects. And if it's selected, it'll mandate non-functional turf be removed or replaced with water-conserving native landscape for alterations, additions, and adaptive reuse projects. Turf is typically a high water demand plant material, and by limiting locations for turf, this result will be significant water savings. Turf is still acceptable to be installed when it meets the functional need. So this proposal creates requirements around where turf can be placed so that it becomes functional landscaping and limits high water planting use types. The next proposal is proposal 28 about landscaping requirements. So this proposal is for new and large renovation projects for single families and duplexes and for commercial projects. It provides continuity within the character of Denver landscaping by providing a network for pollinators. It eliminates high water plants, and it provides tree canopy to reduce urban heat island effect. Requirements such as having minimum landscaping areas, which you can start to see here, minimum size and quantities for trees and shrubs, so these next 2, planting diversity, and maintenance requirements. And a careful balance was created to give homeowners design ability and create consistency with public landscaping and best practices. And neighboring cities were studied, such as Lakewood, Golden, and Colorado Springs. One moment, please. The next proposal is proposal 32 about tree preservation in primary and side street setbacks. So it's a requirement with additional tree preservation in property setback areas. And this is to retain more existing trees and private property to help urban tree canopy and support species and reduce carbon. It extends the current preservation requirements on private property to apply to all project types. So new construction, additions, alterations, remodels, and change of occupancy. This maintains the number of established trees in Denver. The current regulation is only applies to the construction of new single-family duplexes and multifamily dwelling units located in residential zones. And the last proposal that is slated to be discussed at the first hearing is a proposal about rock mulch allowances. So this limits the amount of rock mulch used in landscaping areas, which can contribute to heat island effect by transferring heat to underlying soils. It can also damage soil and plants by increasing chemical fertilizer use. Also, rock mulch does not decompose to support healthy soil. So by minimizing rock mulching, organic mulch will be used more often, which is better for soil health. This proposal has an SRI value and a size limit. The SRI value will help specify lighter colored rocks and minimize urban heat island effect by the transfer to soils. And the size limits will mitigate spillover onto neighboring surfaces. So that was the last proposal for the Denver Green Code non-energy committees that's scheduled to be discussed at these committees. Depending on how the progress of the committees goes, some of these may roll over into the second hearings. So thank you very much. Hi again. Next, I'll be reviewing the proposals for the upcoming Denver Green Code non-energy hearings. These are the proposals scheduled to be heard at the next Denver Green Code non-energy hearings, but given the discussion time, some of these may roll into the next hearings. These are my notes and summaries of the proposals taken from the reason statements and overall body of the proposal. For public proposals, I have done my best to not change the intent of these proposals. To read these in detail, please visit the 2022 Denver Building and Fire Code and Denver Green Code Adoption Process website, where we have a list of proposed amendments. To hear the full discussion and ask any questions, please attend the Code Committee hearings. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So I'll be going through these proposals one at a time and just giving a high-level overview of them. So the first proposal is proposal number 38 about in-chapter site sustainability, and it's about bird-safe glazing. So this proposal includes requirements and specific guidelines for bird-safe glazing design and implementation. According to the National Audubon Society, bird collision with building facades is known to be a leading cause of bird deaths. As many as 1 billion birds die in collisions each year. Requiring bird-friendly materials on the building envelope, as well as landscape and water features, will help to protect birds from colliding with glass. The City and County of Denver is taking the lead in bird conservation through the Lights Out Denver initiative, which strives to conserve bird populations through monitoring and data collection, and encouraging building owners to turn off or dim their lights during migration season from midnight to dawn, as well as take measures to retrofit or make their buildings bird friendly. And so you can see here there's added definitions in the proposal, as well as requirements for bird friendly materials. The next proposal is proposal number 43. And this one is also in Chapter 5, Site Sustainability, and it's about declining species support. So this proposal takes action to protect species that are identified to be in decline in Denver. When species become extinct in a complex ecosystem that has developed over time, the ecosystem can fall out of balance and lead to collapse of the system. This can have a domino effect that destabilizes ecosystem health regionally. So species identified as endangered or species of concern are known to inhabit areas in Denver and are in areas designated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Colorado Parks and Wildlife as riparian corridors, lakes, and wetlands are some of the most biologically productive natural ecosystems in the world and are considered to have high ecological and societal value. So the proposed language uses established standards by the Sustainable Sites Initiative, as well as guidelines from the Fish and Wildlife Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and National Audubon to preserve areas of endangered and valuable habitats and encourage improvement of habitats on developed sites. The next proposal is proposal number 45 in Chapter 5, Site Sustainability of the Denver Green Code. And this is for defined allowable pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, and organic choices. So this proposal is intended to define allowable pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides while promoting self-sustaining organic landscape practices. Reduced use of chemical applications to exterior landscapes has a positive effect in mitigating air and water pollution that result from the chemical uptake into rivers and waterways. So mimicking natural ecosystems in landscape practices is necessary for preserving fragile ecosystems, maintaining clean water, and eliminating exposure of synthetic chemicals to human populations. And you can see in this proposal the added definitions to this chapter, as well as the requirements for having organic landscape plans. The next proposal is Proposal 48B, again in Chapter 5, Site Sustainability of the Denver Green Code, about glare requirements. So this minimizes light trespass from buildings and sites and reduces sky glow to increase night sky access, improves nighttime visibility through glare reduction, and reduces development impact on nocturnal environments. Poor lighting wastes billions of dollars per year in energy consumption and carbon emissions. And the International Dark Sky Association estimates that at least 30% of all outdoor lighting in the US is wasted, mostly by lights that aren't properly shielded. That adds up to about $3 billion in wasted energy every year. Wasted outdoor lighting in the US also generates about 15 million tons of carbon dioxide per year into the atmosphere. And a growing body of research suggests that light pollution may have a significant and adverse impact on human health. So you can see the requirements added for the Denver Green Code for backlight and glare. And there's a different maximum allowable glare ratings for building mounted and for backlight and uplight and glare requirements. This next proposal is a public proposal submitted by Michael Rousseau, and it's about restoration and maintenance of honeybee populations. So the purpose of this proposal is to suggest additions to the code that could be alternatives to more expensive sustainability improvements and practices. And this proposal will ensure that honeybee populations, and therefore a healthy supply of generalist pollinators, will be maintained in the Denver urban environment. Biodiversity is an important goal of the code because it is important for Denver to have a healthy environment that supports a strong ecosystem. Honeybee colonies have a mortality rate of up to 50% per year due to climate change, pesticide use, changing landscapes, and diseases. Honeybee colonies, when maintained professionally, can survive our winters and provide pollinator services to a 2-mile radius around their hive. This means that hives in Denver location have an impact on a much larger community than just their immediate location. So you can see in this proposal there are requirements for installation for honeybees and the hive management requirements. Our next proposal is proposal number 140 in Chapter 5, Sustainability of the Denver Green Code related to passive solar on individual lots. So this proposal outlines what a passive solar design needs to consider to maximize energy savings. An important aspect of good passive solar design is that it takes advantage of the opportunities at the specific site to reduce energy use passively. And passive solar design takes advantage of a building site, climate, and materials to minimize that energy use. And a well-designed passive solar home first reduces heating and cooling loads through energy efficiency strategies, and then meets those needs, those reduced loads in whole or part with solar energy. And you can see the different requirements for passive solar design within this proposal. And the last proposal scheduled to be discussed during the upcoming Denver Green Code non-energy hearing is proposal number 66 for gray water systems in city facilities. So the purpose of including these gray water provisions into this chapter of the Denver Green Code is to enhance the design and construction of buildings through the use of building concepts having a positive environmental impact and encouraging sustainable construction practices, allowing efficiency and conservation of water, and promoting resource efficiency. Water is a critical resource in Denver and the West, and Denver as a community is uniquely positioned to provide exemplary leadership to communities throughout Colorado River Basin. Initiatives tied to reducing Denver community demand on critically strained eastern snowpack and Colorado River source water are of high value to both Denver citizens in the short term and to regional residents in the future. On-site gray water reuse is one in a suite of strategies to enhance responsible water use and more strongly reconnect our community consciousness to this critical, life-giving, and increasingly stressed resource. And the state of Colorado has specific regulations regarding gray water systems, and the City and County of Denver does not wish to override, amend, or detract from those regulations. So this proposal points directly to Regulation 86 to find all the requirements for the system design, control, and installation. And in alignment with the 2018 Denver policy addressing gray water systems, all of the state level possible options are accepted in Denver. So we wish to include them in the full under the Denver Green Code provisions, making sure that it's clear that each option is considered a separate provision when choosing electives. And again, to read these in detail, please visit the 2022 Denver Green Code, Denver Building and Fire Code, and Denver Green Code Adoption Process website, where we have a list of all these proposal amendments in detail. And to hear the full discussion and ask any questions, please attend the Code Committee hearings. Thank you for listening.